2,000 years ago, a single city on the banks of the Tiber River grew to conquer an entire known world. It built roads that still exist, laws that still govern us, and an empire that shaped the very fabric of Western civilization. But how does an empire of 5 million square kilometers, an empire that gave us architectural marvels, legendary generals, and brutal tyrants, rise from a collection of mud huts, only to collapse into the ashes of history? This is the complete, unbroken history of the Roman Empire. Welcome to the American Archive. Myth, Monarchy, and the Republic, c. 753 BC, 264 BC. History remembers Rome through legend. According to myth, the city was founded in 753 BC by Romulus, after he brutally slew his twin brother, Remus, in a dispute over where to build their settlement's walls. Yet, modern archaeology tells a different story, revealing that around 625 BC, scattered pastoral communities near the Tiber River slowly unified, establishing the foundations of a settlement destined for greatness. For centuries, Rome was ruled by kings. The Roman kingdom was powerful, but it was brought down by tyranny. In 509 BC, the scandal surrounding the tragic assault of the noblewoman, Lucretia, by the king's son ignited a revolution. The Romans overthrew their final monarch, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, and swore an oath never to be ruled by a king again. Out of this rebellion, the Roman Republic was born. Power was divided. 2 annually elected consuls held executive authority, advised by the prestigious Senate. Society was sharply split between the elite patricians and the working class. Plebeians, a social tension that would spark centuries of internal political struggle. Yet, despite internal division, Rome expanded relentlessly across the Italian peninsula. Rome's survival was hard-earned. In 390 BC, invading Gallic tribes sacked and burned the city to the ground. But under the brilliant military recovery led by the statesman Camillus, Rome rose from the ashes, fortifying its borders and proving that defeat only made the Republic stronger. The Punic Wars in Mediterranean dominion, 264 BC, 133 BC. With Italy secured, Rome set its sights on total dominance of the Mediterranean. This brought them into a brutal clash with Carthage, a wealthy North African maritime empire. Thus began the Punic Wars, a titanic struggle for survival and supremacy that spanned over a century. During the Second Punic War, Carthage unleashed one of history's greatest military masterminds, Hannibal Barca. In an audacious move, Hannibal marched an entire army, complete with war elephants, across the treacherous Alps to invade the Italian mainland. For over 15 years, Hannibal outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and slaughtered Roman legions in devastating engagements, most notably at the catastrophic Battle of Cannae, where tens of thousands of Romans died in a single day. Yet Rome refused to break, adopting a strategy of attrition. The brilliant Roman general Scipio Africanus took the fight directly to Africa, defeating Hannibal at the Battle of Zama. Carthage was crippled. Decades later, during the Third Punic War in 146 BC, Rome returned to finish the job. Carthage was entirely destroyed, its population enslaved, and its fields infamously sown with salt. Simultaneously, Rome conquered Macedonia and absorbed the Greek world. But in a poetic twist of cultural conquest, Greece conquered Rome culturally. Greek philosophy, drama, architecture, and art flooded into Roman society, transforming a pragmatic military state into a sophisticated civilization. The fall of the Republic and the rise of Caesar, 133 BC, 27 BC. Success, however, bred corruption. The influx of immense wealth and massive slave labor fractured the Republic's social fabric. Political institutions buckled under widespread bribery, economic inequality, and violent civil unrest. Into this power vacuum stepped a charismatic, ambitious patrician, Julius Caesar. Seeking glory and political leverage, Caesar launched the conquest of Gaul, modern-day France, Belgium, Switzerland, and Western Germany. In 52 BC, facing a massive coalition of Gallic tribes led by Vercingetorix, Caesar engineered one of the most brilliant military triumphs in history at the Siege of Alesia, starving out a massive enemy force by building a dual fortification wall. Gaul was conquered, and Caesar became a living legend. Fearing his growing power, the Roman Senate ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome alone. Instead, in 49 BC, Caesar made a fateful decision. He crossed the Rubicon River with his loyal legions, committing treason and plunging Rome into a brutal civil war. His rival Pompey fled to Egypt only to be assassinated. Caesar emerged victorious, seizing absolute control and declaring himself dictator in perpetuity. Caesar's absolute rule terrified traditional republicans, who feared the return of a king. On the Ides of March in 44 BC, a conspiracy led by Cassius and Brutus lured Caesar to the Senate house and brutally assassinated him, stabbing him 23 times. The conspirators hoped to restore the republic, but they only unleashed an even greater storm of bloodshed. A second triumvirate arose, led by Caesar's adopted son Octavian, Mark Antony, and Lepidus. After crushing Caesar's assassins at the Battle of Philippi, Rome was once again sliced apart by civil war, this time between Octavian in the west and Mark Antony allied with Queen Cleopatra of Egypt in the east. The decisive naval engagement came at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, where Octavian crushed the joint forces of Antony and Cleopatra, driving both to suicide. In 48 BC, the two armies met at the Battle of Pharsalus in Greece. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Caesar's experienced veterans achieved a decisive victory. Pompey fled to Egypt, hoping to rebuild his strength, but he was assassinated shortly after arriving. Caesar entered Egypt as the uncontested master of the Roman world. During his stay in Egypt, Caesar formed a political and personal alliance with Queen Cleopatra VII. Together, they secured her throne, strengthening Rome's influence in the eastern Mediterranean. Returning to Rome, Caesar introduced sweeping reforms. He reorganized the provincial government, expanded citizenship, restructured debt, and introduced the Julian calendar, a calendar whose design still influences the modern system. In 44 BC, the Senate declared him dictator for life. Many senators feared that the republic itself was dying. On March 15, 44 BC, the Ides of March, those fears erupted into violence. Led by Brutus, Cassius, and dozens of conspirators, senators stabbed Julius Caesar to death inside the theater of Pompey. Ironically, the assassination, intended to save the republic instead, triggered another devastating civil war. Power quickly shifted to Caesar's adopted heir, the young Octavian, alongside Mark Antony and Lepidus. Together they formed the Second Triumvirate and hunted down Caesar's assassins. At the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC, Brutus and Cassius were defeated, bringing an end to the conspiracy. But victory did not bring peace. Soon Octavian and Antony became bitter rivals. Mark Antony strengthened his alliance with Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. In Rome, Octavian portrayed Antony as a leader who had abandoned Roman traditions for foreign influence. The conflict reached its climax in 31 BC at the Battle of Actium. Octavian's admiral Agrippa destroyed Antony's fleet. Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt, where both later took their own lives as Octavian forces closed in. For the first time in decades, Rome had only one undisputed ruler. Augustus reformed taxation, strengthened the military, created the Praetorian Guard, expanded road networks, improved provincial administration, and launched ambitious construction projects throughout the empire. He famously claimed, "I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble." His reign ushered in the Pax Romana, nearly 2 centuries of relative peace, economic prosperity, and remarkable cultural achievement. During the reign of Tiberius, Jesus of Nazareth was crucified in the Roman province of Judea. What began as a small religious movement would eventually reshape the empire itself. His successors, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero, each left dramatically different legacies. The empire had reached extraordinary heights, but darker days lay ahead. Fire, rebellion, unstable emperors, and new invasions would test Rome like never before. Yet from these crises would emerge some of history's greatest rulers, before the empire ultimately faced its decline. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD devastated much of the capital. Although historians continue to debate Nero's exact responsibility, his reputation never recovered. Political revolt spread across the empire, and in 68 AD Nero died, bringing the Julio-Claudian dynasty to an end. What followed was chaos. 4 emperors, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and finally Vespasian, claimed the throne within a single year. Civil war once again threatened Rome, but Vespasian restored stability and founded the Flavian dynasty. Vespasian launched one of history's most recognizable construction projects, the Flavian Amphitheater, better known today as the Colosseum. completed under his son Titus around 80 AD. It could hold tens of thousands of spectators who gathered to watch gladiatorial contests, animal hunts, public ceremonies, and staged spectacles. More than an entertainment venue, it symbolized Rome's engineering brilliance and imperial confidence. Trajan expanded Roman territory to its greatest size, stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia. Hadrian chose consolidation over conquest. He strengthened frontiers and ordered the construction of Hadrian's Wall across northern Britain to defend the empire's northern boundary. He also rebuilt the magnificent Pantheon, whose massive concrete dome still stands today. Marcus Aurelius, remembered as both emperor and philosopher, wrote his timeless work Meditations while leading campaigns along Rome's northern frontier. His reflections on duty, discipline, and resilience continue to inspire readers nearly 2,000 years later. After Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD, his son Commodus inherited the throne. Unlike his father, Commodus ruled erratically, and his assassination opened the door to decades of instability. During the crisis of the 3rd century, emperors rose and fell with alarming speed. Civil wars, economic inflation, epidemics, and invasions by Germanic tribes and the Persian Empire pushed Rome to the edge of collapse. The empire survived, but only through sweeping reforms. A generation later, Constantine the Great reunited the empire after defeating Maxentius at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 AD. Following his victory, Constantine embraced Christianity and issued the Edict of Milan, granting religious tolerance throughout the empire. He also founded a magnificent new capital on the site of Byzantium, Constantinople, a city that would flourish for more than 1,000 years. In 395 AD, Emperor Theodosius divided the empire between sons. Arcadius ruled the Eastern Roman Empire from Constantinople. Honorius governed the Western Roman Empire from Italy. While the East remained wealthier and more secure, the West struggled against mounting economic problems, political instability, and relentless invasions by Goths, Vandals, Huns, and other migrating peoples. Rome itself was sacked in 410 AD by the Visigoths under Alaric, and again in 455 AD by the Vandals, shattering the illusion of Rome's invincibility. Finally, in 476 AD, the Germanic leader Odoacer deposed the young emperor Romulus Augustus. Historians traditionally mark this moment as the fall of the Western Roman Empire, yet Rome itself did not completely disappear. The Eastern Roman Empire, known today as the Byzantine Empire, continued to preserve Roman law, culture, and imperial traditions for nearly another 1,000 years. The Roman Empire may have fallen, but its legacy never did. Roman law still influences legal systems across the globe. Latin shaped countless modern languages. Roman engineering inspired roads, bridges, aqueducts, and architecture that continue to stand after 2 millennia. Ideas about citizenship, government, military organization, and public administration echo through modern societies. More than 15 centuries after the fall of the Western Empire, Rome remains one of history's greatest civilizations, not because it lasted forever, but because its influence never truly ended. Thank you for watching the American Archive. If you enjoyed this journey through the complete history of Rome, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let us know in the comments which empire or civilization you'd like us to explore next. Until then, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next documentary.